afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the school building committee. Hope everyone's having a great summer. I think, as we all know, you guys are about a week from ready go time.
That's right.
We are less than a week from go time. We have our new staff returning tomorrow and all staff returning on Monday.
Well, then we better move this along.
There we go.
Students on Wednesday.
That's right.
First order of business, I'd like to see if there's a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the July 18th meeting of the school building committee.
I move to accept the meeting minutes from July 18th, 2020.
We have a second?
Second.
All right, shall we do a roll call vote?
Yep, do a roll call vote. Just going by the way we submitted to the MSBA. Pam, would you make sure you grab motions and seconds? Okay, thank you. All right. Steve Crucial?
Yes.
And Ms. Margin Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Okay. I am a yes. Ms. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Fenny's not here. Mr. Quimby?
Yes.
Mr. Page?
Yep.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Larrigan?
Yes.
Okay, and Ms. LeBar?
I wasn't present, does that matter?
So you can abstain. Okay. Thanks. And we have any noes? And one abstention. Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Well, similarly, is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes from June 27th?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, great. We'll do another roll call vote. So this is for approving the minutes from June 27th. Mr. Crucial? Okay. Ms. Margin Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Blair?
Yes.
He's absent. Mr. Quimby?
Yes.
Mr. Page?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
I was absent.
Mr. Lonergan?
Yes.
And Ms. LeBar?
Yes.
Beautiful, fantastic. Steve, we are 1 minute ahead of schedule.
All right.
Oh.
We'd now like to open it up for any members of the public who would like to offer any comment.
We can pull up a seat.
Can I just go right here in the corner?
Sure, that'd be fine. If you don't mind just saying your name and your address.
So my name is Andrea Schmidt. I live at 66 Norton Street. For the school committee members, there's a much lesser contingency this afternoon because most of us were working. I wanted to come personally to ask everyone if they received a copy of the petition that was left with Gordon.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Just here to voice our concerns with the amount of traffic. This is Brittany and I were walking up here for this meeting. 3 cars flew up the street at an excessive rate of speed for a residential neighborhood. And I would imagine you're sitting in this room. Don't know that for sure, but I imagine you are. I'm happy to share the vehicles, but I don't feel that we need to do that at this point. But we're really frustrated. The traffic, the speeding, adding an entrance, continuing to have the entrance on Norton Street is not a good thing for our neighborhood. You have the main access off Maple Street. We've outlined our concerns in the petition. A couple of us are here again tonight or this afternoon to share our continued concerns. We just hope moving forward in the designs, we will take Norton Street access off of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone else who would like to speak?
And just so the committee knows, we had 30 to 40 residents
Right.
here on our Monday night meeting that were expressing concern about that. So,
And the concerns are very similar to what Schmidt just expressed. Not only excessive rate of speed, but parking illegally in the neighborhood. Sadly, a couple of years ago, one resident shared the other night that a dog was hit. And so the concern obviously is that the next accident could be really tragic, and we want to avoid that.
So one of our neighbors in the neighborhood is a EMT paramedic in the town, and his phrase was pretty eye-opening, which is, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I thought Jim, I mean, he was very eloquent and very quick when he said that, but I think it hit home for a lot of folks.
Did you want to speak?
Hi, my name is Brittany Saderon. I live at 26 Marshall Street. I have 2 young boys, 10-year-old and a 5-year-old in town. My 10-year-old was almost hit by a car going onto his bus. I swear my heart fell to my feet. He gets picked up at our driveway. And not only did the car not stop at the intersection stop sign, but it also didn't stop at the bus driver's stop sign. So that's just one incident for me personally. We have almost been hit walking on our street, and there is no sidewalk. So it's not as if, like, literally, unless we're going to drive everywhere, which we are minutes from here, like we walked here today, it's almost silly to drive absolutely everywhere, let alone like the environmental impact. But we should feel safe with ourselves as adults, but also our children in our neighborhood. The transportation department has been wonderful. My 5-year-old this year was the only 5-year-old on our block who was not going to be picked up at our house. The 5-year-old's bus stop was at the intersection, which soon those snowbanks will be higher than him. And so not only is it just difficult now to navigate, I think increasing any amount of traffic, football, we're not usually outside after dark in the winter. But so I don't know what the basketball situation is like in the winter. Right now, football practice is absolutely insane. And I just think that in regular school hour times, dismissal and getting to school in the morning, it's not only young kids driving who drive absolutely insane. It's older adults. I don't know where they work, what have you, but looking at their profile, speeding down the street, it's not only young kids. It's just a mixture of people getting to where they have to go. A matter of minutes really won't affect much, but it will affect our children and just our peace of mind. So I know I'm speaking to the choir, like I feel like we're just saying the same thing over and over again, but it's a major concern day in and day out for us. And I just hope that you guys will take this into consideration in keeping the entrance and exit strictly off of Maple, if that's possible. That's all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Other folks who would like to speak?
Anyone online?
Jamie, do we have anybody online?
Yeah, there's 3 people, but I don't see any hands raised.
Okay.
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 And then we will,
May I suggest that you put some speed bumps out there, or there are things you can do to,
Right.
slow
I mean,
people
One of the
down.
things that we had discussed the other night as a school committee is I will be talking with Chief Williams, our chief of police, and see what is possible.
Because I think the town's been fighting them for a while now, too.
I'm sorry?
I said, I know rollout spikes isn't an option. It might slow people down.
I mean, as a school department, I don't have the authority to put speed bumps on a town road. Yeah, so we're gonna have to, right.
Mitigate.
Steve.
I'm sorry, better late than never. Right?
Absolutely, yeah, please.
Certainly.
I'll just share briefly some
Sure.
of the thoughts that I shared with the
other night.
The other night.
Right.
And first of all, my name is Louis Calabrese. I live at 198 Maple Street. For 20 years, I lived at 97 Barry Road, which is on a corner of Marshall and Barry. Back when they were building this school, they promised this neighborhood that they would put this rear entrance that was going to be only for school deliveries. Never happened. I saw over 20-year period, everything aside from that. And it's gotten worse, I understand. the truth is, now is the best time to eliminate having to bring any traffic back here because you're building a new school. You can position that so that Maple Street, which is really designed for that kind of traffic, will adequately handle anything you have to do. So I really want to just say that I would be very much against any traffic for the school, other than maybe emergencies or deliveries to the school. Otherwise, it should be just through Maple Street. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else would like to comment? Okay. And Jamie, no one's online.
I don't know if we want to ask them to raise their hand if they want to speak, but I don't see any. There's 3.
I do see Mr. Fenny. Actually, we might want to invite him in as a panelist.
I did, yeah.
Okay, great. There he is. Hello, Mr. Fenny. And anybody else who's online?
Those are design team members.
Okay, design team member.
But doesn't mean they can't speak.
Do you want them to become?
Noted.
Sure, they can become panelists.
Okay.
What are you saying no?
Oh, it doesn't matter. That's fine.
Did you want to say something?
No, I was shaking my head no when you said yes, but that doesn't
Oh.
matter. They won't speak, but they may.
Well, they can come in to have the ability to speak if should. They can't speak if they're not panelists. Okay, and we can
Then
move
we'll
forward.
close the public comment portion. We will move on to the update from our owner's project manager, Skanska. 1 minute, lady.
You can go.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think just one more slide. There we go. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this important meeting. So today, the OPM and the design team are going to be reviewing the components of the preliminary design program submittal, which will be going into MSBA next week with you folks and all of its components. And at the end of the meeting, there will be a motion to approve and authorize that submission to the state, to the Mass School Building Authority. And so I just wanted to give a quick snapshot of where we're at in the process up here. So this is the preliminary project schedule, which has been shared with you in the past and is now updated to show recent progress. But it wasn't so long ago that we met with you. I think it was, if you look at item number 44 on the schedule, that was our last SBC meeting. So a little more than a month after that, and here we are today. And you can see following down the line here, essentially after we met with you the last time, we focused on completing all of the PDP deliverables. And you'll see below that, just one of the big deliverables is the cost estimating portion. So all of the options you'll be seeing today, the project options that is, we sent out for cost estimating to get construction costs for the options. So that takes a little bit of time. We have that information now and it's built in, like I said, later into the presentation. So here we are today for the SBC meeting. And granted, we get an approval today, we'll be submitting to the Mass School Building Authority this submission next Tuesday, August 30th. So from there, MSBA has a kind of mandatory 21-day review period in which they will review all of the documents included in the PDP submission, and then they will give us their review comments. The project team will have 10 days to respond to those comments, and then we're moving into the next portion of the project, which is the Psr phase. So in Psr, we carry these options that were proposed through the PDP submission. And the end goal of the Psr, I should stop acronizing everything. Psr is the preferred schematic report. So we go from PDP, the preliminary design program. Upon approval of that, we move into the preferred schematic report. And so once again, we're taking a look at the options that were included in the PDP during the preferred schematic report. And at the end of the preferred schematic report, the goal is to have consensus for a preferred solution, the option that makes the most sense for the district. And so that's what we'll be working through into later this year. And then we do have a tentative date shown up here for our submission of the PSR shown in January. So you'll see that item number 55, January 13th. And we can continue going on through you guys hit the next slide? Yep. So upon completion of PSR, because that's when you have your project, what the project will actually be. And then we go into schematic design, actually building out the design further for that option. And then ultimately, we're targeting next year for the funding of this project, the district vote. We were showing November right now. Once again, I should say that none of this is really set in stone. It kind of is a tentative schedule because things could change. The option of the project could change. So certain things in here will certainly change. The other aspect of this is I just received today from the Mass School Building Authority their 2023 board dates. So you'll see if you follow a lot of these activities, they're all tied to specific dates for when the board meets. So I'll take a look at what those dates are, and we're going to be revising this schedule based on that. So anyways, once we do get the project funded, this schedule is assuming a new construction project. Once again, we do have to make some assumptions at this portion of the project, but this is not set in stone because there are things that could change down the road. So from there, we continue design of the project, the detailed design, which if you guys could go to the next page. So it's broken up into 60% and 90% construction documents, but ultimately what this shows you is the linear schedule of how all the construction documents come together. And at the end of that, we'll have our 100% construction document bid package. And you'll see there at the bottom, I can't really see the dates. No, sorry. December 20th? Yeah, December 20th of 2024. So that's actually, what does it say below that, Gordon? I'm sorry. I'll get one right here. Did you guys go to the next page? That's why we're not seeing it. Yeah, there we go. So essentially what this is saying, and once again, this is an assumption, but we've broken out this schedule to show early bid packages. So upon completion of the 100% construction documents, the early site package number 1 you're seeing at the top, site work. What we did there was we based that off of being bid out off of the 60% construction document completion. And so that you'll see starts up in June of 2024. It's actually before our 100% construction documents are ready. However, at the 60% mark, the documents should be ready enough for us to actually bid out the site work, which actually allows you to start construction earlier and not just wait for the full set of documents to be ready to bid out. So that allows us to start in June of 2024. Once again, we've broken out this is once again an assumption, but we've broken out another early bid package of concrete and steel. So those are 2 more packages that should be very ready at the 90% construction document portion. So we're basing that off of being bid off of the 90% completion. And then you'll see from there the bid out, the 100% construction documents. So the rest of the trade packages that have not been bid out yet will be done then. And then so just following into the construction schedule, once again, this assumes a 2.5-year construction period. You'll have mobilization of the early packages in July of 2024. And then if you just follow all the way down, the big date, the certificate of occupancy, July 14th, 2026. So that summer of 2026, should this be a new project or a new building project, we would target right around there, the summer of 2026 for certificate of occupancy. And you can see all the other milestones that go along with that summer. But the big one is occupancy and move-in. And in August of 2026, in time for the kids to come back to school for the fall. And so going through that schedule, I do have, there's been a recent proposition, I believe on Friday, some project team members, both from the district and UPM group and design group, met and discussed the overall schedule here and where we're at in the PDP phase and what this PSR phase looks like as well. And what they talked about was it might be beneficial to increase the duration of the PSR phase by 1 month so that we can build a better consensus for the project and what the preferred solution, because that's very important. That once that is in and the PSR is approved, that is what your option is. That's what you're rolling with. So we do find it advantageous to have a little more time during the PSR phase. So rather than submitting in January of next year, we would be submitting in February. I know that a month may not seem like a long time, but we do feel like there will be opportunities within that month, within the whole duration, to not just meet with the SBC, but also more community engagement, just so that, you know, I said consensus. I want the consensus to be as elaborate as possible for the district. So that's one thing that we're going to be just proposing to you guys today. Steve, I don't know, maybe you could weigh in on it, but ultimately what we would be doing is adding 1 month to the PSR phase and subtracting 1 month from the schematic design phase. So it does not increase the overall schedule. It's just we find, or we, in discussions with the design team, feel that reducing the schematic design phase from 7.5 months down to 6.5 months will still give us enough time to do a complete and accurate SD phase. So we find it more beneficial just to include that in PSR. So we obviously want the group to discuss and deliberate on this, but we would like some recommendation today on that.
Ben, is this in any way linked to the board meeting schedule for MSBA?
So it's not yet. I just received today, actually right before I walked in, Vitricky, our project manager, sent over the 2023 board dates. So I use just logic from past projects, Steve. They're always typically in the same month. I can never tell you exactly the days. So we used some assumptions, and I'm sure they're not far off, but what I need to do now is go back in, take a look at those dates and revise this, because it's all tied to, you know, when we submit, it's a certain amount of days you have to submit before so that they can review all of that. So this will be changed for the submission.
What's the schedule like for their meeting? Like quarterly, monthly?
Monthly.
No, the board meetings, every other month on, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the schedule.
I mean, they have meetings all the time, but their board meetings are every other month.
The first board meeting is March 1st.
So February
Yep.
submittal.
Submit.
Is there a FAS before then?
Facility assessment is January and February. January 18th and February 1st.
February, okay, so that actually should work. Okay.
Yeah, so that doesn't affect us.
No, it doesn't.
Or it doesn't affect the 1 month.
Right, that actually fits pretty well with our, if I'm understanding it correctly, that should fit pretty well with what we're proposing as a schedule change here.
Can I ask, what is the process for getting that extension, and is 1 month extension sufficient? Because I was thinking it was a 2 month extension.
And so I believe there was more communication. I apologize, I wasn't privy to the conversation, but
I just want to make sure, because it is very important that, you know, community events, we need people to give their feedback.
Absolutely.
So the conversation was 2 months. We looked at the schedule, trying to figure out how this might align and how much time in advance of that we would need, because what we don't want to do is shortchange the design time on the other end and not have time to do a good job on schematic design. So we backed it off a month, you know, and there's no, this is just an internal schedule that Skanska sets, so it doesn't require MSBA approval to
Okay,
change that.
thank you, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, but we just felt, looking at it, that if we push to 2 months, we then started to tighten up on the other end. What we don't want to do is have this delay the construction bidding and construction window, because that's where cost comes into the picture. So we wanted to be sure that wasn't the case. I'm staying tight to that.
All right, because you mentioned that, I wanted to ask, and I know today isn't necessarily it, but I do want to have this conversation prior to getting to that point. Because of how COVID is and everything else, getting a hard bid versus design build. I think we need to have that conversation. I know the majority of the people sitting in this room right here want to do a design bid, but if we could save $2 million, $3 million, $5 million by maybe doing a hard bid, and it takes us 6, 8, 9 months longer to get the school up, that might be something that we need to do as a district. That said, a hard bid could end up costing more. I understand that because COVID's kind of messed stuff up. So think about that. Know that I'm going to keep asking about that. And then someday I want that as part of one of our meetings so we could have like a good conversation about it. I'd appreciate it.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I think we defer
Absolutely.
the decision until after the projects.
Okay, because I don't know like when we're supposed to like know that. So I figured I'm throwing it out there
If you
now.
went with a CM approach, I would want to have the CM on board for the design development estimate, which is.
Might be helpful, just even though we're not getting into the discussion, just to explain both options?
Yeah, so, and that's why we can do we have a full presentation on this, which we would like to do because it is pretty extensive, 149 versus 149A. But honestly, we could probably do that for the next SBC meeting. I mean, it's probably a half hour we would need for that. That's okay. Yeah, and we can share some documents before then as well, but I'm sure what Beth is talking about is fresh to a lot of people here, but there's multiple delivery methods for construction projects, and there's pros and cons, kind of, as you can hear Beth saying, to each one of them. And so what we'd like to, particularly Skanska does not care which way we go, but there are advantages, disadvantages, like I said, to both. So we'll let you know what those advantages, disadvantages are. And then ultimately, so one of the things I think originally with this schedule is we were basically trying to get the building as quickly as possible, right? We wanted kids in school in 2026. So with that, and given how limited our schedule was at the time, that kind of brought up that proposition of being able to break it out by early packages to be able to start the construction a little bit earlier before the documents are all. But once again, Beth, this is no way, shape, or form set in stone.
Cost. So, and I know that sometimes a hard bid's a hard bid, and we know what it is. And I mean, going into this, you kind of feel like that, but it could take so much longer too.
Absolutely.
And time is money, and I understand that too. So, all right.
Absolutely.
Let's bring this up in the next couple of
because I
meetings.
wasn't sure when,
Absolutely.
but we don't have to do
Absolutely.
it today because we have other stuff. But I'm just like, it's.
I'd like for that to be its own little stand, because we've got I'd like to present that to you.
Okay.
So.
Great.
Anything else on your side, Ben? It looks like you got one bullet left.
Big one.
You drew the short straw.
So we actually, and we're not kicking this down the road. Well, I guess we are, but so we will be talking about the MSBA pool policy, but I'd like to do that in JWA and SMMA's presentation because they have a good graphic on the policy and all of that. So I figured that would be a good time to get into that discussion rather than right now.
Very well. Anything else you'd like to communicate?
No, thank you.
All right, then we will move on to the design team. Dory and Helen. Christian?
Sure. So I'll just launch us into this, but really this is an opportunity for, I think, also to hear from committee members about the tour to North Middlesex High School. So we did that as an opportunity for people to see a school that felt similar in scale and in materiality to generally what is appropriate and in sight to some of the issues that we're looking at here. So people see something comparable. And Helen can give us more background on this school to tell us a little bit about it and to share then we've brought photos that are not the fancy website photos, they're the photos taken from the trip so that people can get a sense of what it felt like to those who weren't able to attend. So when we walk through some of this. Helen, do you want to just give us a little background on the
Sure.
project?
This project has been many years in the making. It was designed back in 2013, but occupied in 2015. I think they've been in there now 7 years. But this is a regional school for 870 students. So again, we thought the scale was about comparable to your planned design enrollment. And it's a very compact, efficient plan based on the pod scheme of having sort of neighborhoods of classrooms that sort of have a center of spaces that everyone uses. On the first floor, you walk right in, and I know people who are on the tour definitely have opinions about how this works, but you walk right into a very active space, which is the dining commons, but it's also the public commons. It's really the main thoroughfare of the school. And off to one side, you've got the auditorium, and the other, the gym. So everything that it's public use is very centralized. In that you look straight ahead at learning stairs, what we call it. So it's not only a functional stair, but also sort of auditorium seating or stadium seating for informal get-togethers and presentations. Go to the next.
Hey, ask one question before we go to the next. General square footage, that's lower than any of our options, correct?
Right. Correct. It's similar in to your existing school square footage, right?
Yeah,
We're at
yeah,
183 right now.
It's about 5,500 less than your current school, so it's a smaller
And yet it houses more students.
No, what's the, do you know?
870 is the,
We're 824.
right now, yeah,
Is 870 the design enrollment or the current?
design enrollment. Yeah, we should, we can double check with the principal what the current enrollment is. Yeah, and it was, yeah.
I mean, that's just something that's probably for future,
Right, and as
future meeting discussion.
as we talked about, going through the school, the major difference here is that this, in our view, reflects pretty accurately what your high school program diagram looks like in many ways, what you're looking for in terms of the size of the gym, the size of the auditorium is comparable. Band, chorus, art rooms, 2 art rooms, so it's very similar in that respect. Where it differs is the community program, right?
Right.
So that's the big jump.
Right.
Okay. That jumped out at me.
So one nice thing about this design is that it can be used either departmentally or interdisciplinarily. That's a word. So having the pods laid out as they are allows you to do either approach. Some shots of the auditorium. And again, auditorium per MSBA policy was sized for 2/3 of the design enrollment.
So this is very similar to the size that we're talking about for a new construction here. It was helpful for people to take a look at that and feel that.
That's smaller than what the
It
school
is smaller,
currently
but
has.
I think
Designed
people
for
who were-
2/3.
Okay.
People who were on the tour did not feel that it was inadequate, so it's, how does that feel is an important.
We'll have a third Spartanum or something.
Yeah, yeah.
You do the Sunday matinee.
There's so many fights, this is, I guess, one of the least ones, we want to worry about bigger auditorium, so.
One of the questions that we asked when we got into the gym, or at least I asked, and the assistant principals there talking and presenting was where do they do their pep rally? Because we do ours in the auditorium. And they do it in the gym. It's all on one side.
Yep.
Which works.
Yeah, they have pull-out bleachers, which you can't see in this particular shot. This is a larger gym. This was constructed before the MSBA policy changed, so it is larger than what you are looking at in your project. However, I know a lot of people were pretty entranced by the clever storage and ways to pull wrestling mats and volleyball nets up to the ceiling rather than using valuable floor space. If there are other shots, sorry, and yep, just some examples of large group instruction rooms. I think one of those is one that would be central to one of those pods that we were looking at in the plan.
Actually, the one on the left upper is the one in each pod has a large group instruction. One is more science oriented, one is more liberal arts oriented. And then there is that area on the upper right, the 2 small images are an extended part of the cafeteria commons area that is also considered partly that type of space that can be used in a multifunction way.
And then some shots of typical academic spaces, academic, but also upper left is, sort of maker space, or no, that's a science lab, my mistake. Science lab, corridor right below that, music, admin area up top. And it looks like just a shot of that central, one of the stairs, central stair. So I guess we had a good discussion after everyone walked through, kind of, okay, what did you see? What did you like? What makes sense? And, would love to hear from the group that was able to attend, if there's anything you want to share with the rest of the SBC about what you saw.
I like the compact nature of it. I mean, I like just about, there was the 2 things I didn't care for, but I liked just about everything that I think it had to offer. I like how it was compact in nature, in terms of, because I know that that's cost savings and of how I'm thinking. I know finishes are a whole different thing, but I thought the finishes were, something that will move on with time. Although there was avocado green floors, but I think that the spaces for the arts were really pretty phenomenal, which is something that I know our arts teachers are lacking right now. So it's and I didn't care for the cafeteria entrance, but that's another day. So
I thought the academic pods gave a lot of flexibility so that we could get into the type of collaboration and interdisciplinary work that we would like to do and we're starting to do, but our building constrains us from doing, and which would be better for our students. Frank, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, no, it was, I think what was just great for me was just to have a visual of what the project could potentially be. You know, I've seen some of the other high schools in our area that have had recent new builds, but just looking at it through the lens of something that might be what we are looking for, it was just a cool experience all around, you know. And I think it was similar in the sense with Beth that I'm not sold on the cafeteria piece, but I definitely love the idea of that common space as you're walking in, where there's that grand entrance that connects all the pieces together. You know, the academics, the sports, the arts, the office areas. So yeah, but it was just good to really, it helped me get my mind around what to expect and where we're going to be going.
Helen, were there any comments from the staff?
There were, one of the facilities director walked around with us the entire time, so people had the ability to ask questions. He also served on their school building committee, you know, at the front end of the process. Had some advice for you all. You know, make sure you get what you want, I guess, is the bottom line, and, you know, don't cut too quickly and too early, because this is a 50, 60, 70-year investment. But yeah, he had lots of things to say as we were walking through.
I was surprised at how big actually the admin and guidance department space was, and I guess, and it was good I had mentioned it then, because the principal had said to me, well, you kind of need, I feel like huge rooms, you could make one of those a storage room and like all these things, right? What can you do with the rooms they allow? But she is right in terms of having the proper space for dealing with students and whatever we may come across in the future. But that space was, and I think it felt small, it felt bigger than the building we're in now, which I know probably spreads further, but it felt like there was so much packed into it. And I think the footprint's less actually than what we're in right now.
Sure. You feel uncomfortable?
No, I think it felt, you know, airy enough without a lot of wasted space. You know what I mean? You'd like to have the grand entrance, but, you know, I think they did a lot with what they could do. Little pods going in from the rooms, like on the second floor that kind of oversaw into it. I thought that those were great in terms of getting kids out of a classroom, working in small groups, or if a teacher needs to pull a student out and have some quiet time with them. I thought that was a very good use of space. And it kind of hung over the second floor. You know, there was more of the tech classroom that kind of took that high space like that. There you go. And made it a little more useful, because it's not just dead space. You know, that huge open ceiling.
Big volume.
Yeah, and they kept their everything. And I think part of it was, it must just be their rules, and it's probably because the teachers don't own each of those classrooms necessarily. It looked brand new. There wasn't anything on any wall. And part of me is like, part of it is you like to have your feeling when you get in there, but the other part is like, every year a kid walks in there and they feel like they're in a brand new space, you know?
There was 6 years open now. They've been open. They were open for what?
6 years.
Yeah, they were
It was
going
meticulous. Yeah, there wasn't a scratch, a dent, a mark in whatever the finish they used. Served them well.
Impressive.
Yeah.
They also said a lot about the impact it had on students.
Right.
So valued by the school, that had changed things ultimately for the district.
Yeah, no.
That was great.
Yeah, because it wasn't anything in terms of damage, you know, and kids are rough. They don't care, you know?
This is, to know that this is generally a material palette, not the specific colors being a secondary question, but, you know, porcelain tile in that common area and on the wall to protect the walls. Yeah, so it's very similar to the palette of materials that we would be generally looking to specify, and that we've assumed at this point in the cost estimate, just so our understanding is kind of an apples to apples relationship.
Okay.
materials. It doesn't mean that, times don't get hard and it might be challenging, we know that.
But they also had the linoleum in the spaces that it was appropriate.
Right,
You know?
exactly, yeah. Choices.
Yeah.
So
Any other comments?
I will mention, just since we didn't talk to this slide, that this slide shows some of the exterior materials of the building. The really potentially boring but really important one is the one on the bottom left, which is a loading dock. The back end of the building really matters and how that's organized and how it flows. So it's nice to actually design that view around the functional needs of the school. The middle bottom is a concessions building, so important to think about because that's been a goal here. The larger track is, the track facility is very similar to what you have already taken care of, thank goodness.
The other thing I liked about the outside is when you're looking at the front entrance on the right, I liked how they did the landscaping in a situation where people aren't walking through it on it. That type of a thing. So there wasn't a lot of landscaping, but the landscaping they did was situated so that you're not going to have that path. And you go to any school and you get the path. And I liked how they did the concrete, like they just threw a color in there. All it is colored concrete, but it kind of elevates that thought. And I like their outdoor space. They had a couple of them, but the one on the side, which was a learning classroom, I think it was great. The only thing I would do with that is those have got to be covered or.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
So moving on, I'm gonna pass around to everyone, pass a pile of these direction. You can distribute, and these are old stacks that hopefully get on. This is a summary of the results of the, let's see, I might need a couple of those coming this way. So, thank you, Colin, pass along. So we put up at the library a QR code to allow community members to weigh into a community survey. It's been productive so far. We've had 171 responses from community members. Again, at this point, these are kind of open questions helping us to get to know the community's interests and priorities. As we had a public meeting, it was not as well attended as we would have liked. And it all comes back to wanting to continue to hear from the community and learn what their priorities are. And I think as board members, I'm sure now you really see the value of that because decision-making gets harder and harder. So the more opportunities we can create for you to communicate with the community at large, the better. So this small summary that I've handed out shares some of the results, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it has been helpful I'd say in terms of the recreational goals, it's been reinforcing what we've heard all along, the importance of the pool to the project, the importance of the site to supporting community use for recreational purposes in general. So that those are continue to be this discussion. There was also strong support expressed for the auditorium and the LCAT presence in the school. There was concern about safety at the school, just existing safety of whether the school is welcoming and safe at the same time. Concern that the school is too permeable, that it doesn't have secure entries, and it's an interesting challenge, as we know, but the age of the technology support makes it reinforce that concern, I think, in the community is what we were hearing. We had a question about bathrooms and heard opposition to all gender group bathrooms. That's good to hear, so we have that information. We have a majority leaning towards new construction, but again, we don't know what the tax impact is, so it'll be important to bring information about the cost of the projects and the alternatives forward so the community can assess it. And again, we've given a much more detailed breakdown to you all that you can read further and take a look. For instance, things that I think are really interesting is what the priorities are on the community spaces. Some things that we asked about really didn't get a lot of interest, which is helpful to you as we start talking about what we shouldn't include. Because as you know, at the PDP phase, we've really tried to be broad thinking and and listen to everything. And now that, you're looking at the reality of numbers, start thinking, okay, well, some amenity or connection to the bike trail might be an expense not worth making. Replacing the guest bleachers might not be a priority, so it's helpful for you, I think, see where people are leaning on some. Traffic came up as a concern, hearing from tonight. And that's really helpful because as you see the different site plans, look at different ideas. No single plan is wedded to any particular site circulation idea yet. It's really been about vetting those ideas. But again, helping us to hear what are the concerns about drop off and people's concerns about the impact of it. We heard both that it's a concern to the communities around the school as well as traffic concerns on Maple. So that has continued to highlight that as a priority for the project.
We're going to do a traffic study. Correct?
We will do a traffic study to try and really get at that. And then we also included at the end of this summary, some of the things that outlier comments that jump out. It's always helpful. It's not necessarily that you heard from everyone, but things that I think are important to see because they tell you about things that we may not have been talking about that we need to talk about. So give those a look as well. And again, we'll continue to talk through all these issues as we move forward in the project. So to get to the pool policy question, I will say on the survey, we haven't started the process through the school. We've shared the student survey with Frank. I don't think it's gotten distributed yet. So we hope to really augment the input we're getting from students as well, particularly as they start coming back to school. And we discussed at the last meeting ways to get student representative on this board and get student involvement in the process. So we can follow that up in the next meeting, but hopefully as we get students back in the building. So the MSBA pool policy. So as you recall, the options that we were exploring and that we were pricing out included the pool as a new construction of a 6-lane pool in the new construction projects, as well as one of our ed reno, the option of the pool within the building. So we ed reno part of the school, but then tear off part of the school and build a new pool as a part of that new construction area. But there had been questions as to whether the MSBA would support that and to what degree the rules of the MSBA policy might come into play. As we all know, the legislation that governs the MSBA really discourages any commitment or support for field houses and pools because those are basically just not core academic experiences from the legislator's standpoint. So it's not that they begrudge these ideas, it's just that they did not want to participate. But the question was, how does that work exactly? So we had a series of conversations, essentially one verbal and one in writing, in which we followed up on this. And then we actually had a conversation with Jack McCarthy, the executive director of the MSBA. And in that, they clarified that they would not support any option that built the pool as a part of the project within the building. They would want the pool, if it's pursued by the community, as a separate project entirely, that is separately procured and separately constructed, so that all of the support for the MSBA core project isn't simultaneously supporting this separate element. This is particularly true in the new construction. In a renovation, they understand that the pool exists and can't be ignored. So if the renovation option of renovating the existing 4-lane pool were selected, that would obviously be part of the project. They would not support square footage. It wouldn't be eligible for MSBA reimbursement, but it could proceed within the project. So it wouldn't need to be a separated project. So with that in mind, even though it seems like a subtle distinction, we're sort of looking at all those options where the pool was built into the construction as ineligible. But what we've done in the cost spreadsheets, as you'll see, is we've gotten the cost for building the pool as a separate building and building the school as a school, so that you can combine those two. Because what we've heard from the leadership committee and from everyone really is that the pool is kind of a non-negotiable to the community. So we wanted to be sure that we showed you what it would mean financially. The details of getting that procurement process going are sort of something we can talk about later, but we want you to sort of be looking at apples to apples at the ideas. So as we go through them, you're going to sort of see it that way today. We shared all the cost estimates, and if you looked through the cost estimates, you would see an option for a new construction without pool, and then the pool listed as a separate item, as its separate cost. So, yes.
But just for clarification for my brain, the MSBA is not reimbursing any part of it. So if it is part of the building construction, where do they make the cutoff line?
Right. They really want the building to be its own thing. So the gray area for us all is, can we build it immediately adjacent to the school and connect it with a control joint and a vestibule? And I think that's what probably we're going to really push for and explore, because that's what makes the most sense for the community. But to the MSBA, that still is a separate thing. And that's why we had to get a number that's slightly different, because we wanted to assume all the costs of the exterior, the foundation, the systems, so that is a complicated little point we have to pursue with them. They would like us to just say it's 100 feet away, but functionally, I know that that's not something the community's gonna like. So I think we have to keep working that way, but what we've tried to do is acknowledge it as a separate building. So
It's going to have its own separate warrant for the.
yes,
That's what I'm thinking.
Yes.
that's what that means, yes.
And just to be clear, the pool has always been ineligible. There's always ineligible expenses. So that's nothing new. It's just that now they're really enforcing that it has to be a separate project.
That's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting distinction, because there are other ineligible costs within the school building itself, central office being one. They have no policy around central office being included in the individual project. They don't say that has to be a separate project. So it was an interesting discussion, to say the least.
Very disappointing, actually, in my opinion.
Don't they feel that overall, I mean, I understand where they're coming from, but in the long run, it ends up costing the districts more money. And like, they're not thinking forward thinking at all. With all due respect, I appreciate whatever they give us, but yeah, it's not forward thinking, and it's just gonna end up costing us more in the end, because as soon as it's done, then you gotta build a vestibule. And that's gonna be a capital project of its own, separate. So, all right.
Yes, we have a hand raised in the back.
Are we allowed to ask questions? So just curious, like in regards to the pool, I'm a mom of swimmers, but it's just a thought. What happens to the swim team? What happens to the Marlins? What happens to the really active swim program in town? What happens to those kids?
Which is why it's such a high priority. It was such a high priority for the building committee. And as you can see, it's a high priority for the community, at least that has responded so far. So it's going to continue in the discussion. The challenging part, as Dory was explaining, is that eventually you're going to have to cost it out, and it's going to have to be its own separate project.
Is it not seen as a part, like a vital part of physical education?
We see it.
We see it.
Yes.
But I mean, like,
Our argument to the MSBA was exactly that since 1964, it has been part of the physical education program. And their brief statement back was, the policy is the policy, basically, is what they told us.
like I had classmates in high school, I went to school in Springfield, but who literally learned how to swim in high school.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, we made the very point that Beth just made about, that you're making this now harder for us, right? Because you're making what appears to be an arbitrary decision. And their answer was the policy. There we are.
It was a challenging conversation, but one we'll continue to have with the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that changes the picture of what the options that we were looking at. So when we sent everything out for cost estimation, we included, we had anticipated this possibility slightly. So we had a 2A and a 2B, or 3A and a 3B. And in 3A, the pool was baked in, and in 3B, the pool is pulled out, essentially. So we've now just removed those, and tonight what we're going to talk about are these 5 options. And the goal tonight is to do two things. One is to submit our approved submittal of the PDP report to the MSBA, which is just a checkpoint in the process. And the other is to determine which of these options we're carrying forward into PSR, into the next phase of feasibility study. And we can take all of them, we can eliminate it down. As you see, what this means is we keep iterating designs, keep exploring the program further. I would say as a whole, generally, even though there's footprints there, they don't mean much yet, right? It's really about square footage. And these cost estimates that we're going to look at here are based on square footage of renovation and new construction, based on a certain quality of building, based on what is standard really across the board in state schools right now, public schools. And then all the factors of time, escalation of cost to the beginning of construction, all of those things are in the cost numbers. And we're really comparing those and deciding, okay, where do we go from here? And remember, at the beginning, we were asking, what's your ed plan? What do you want? What don't you have in the school that you want? What don't you have on site that you want? And all of that's kind of in there right now. So these are very complete figures. They don't necessarily represent the designed school or the final decision. They're here to help you decide what the community can handle financially, so that you can start to set a goal within the community and have constructive conversations, right, about what the scope should be and what the communities.
Are those the conversations we're going to have though over the next? Okay.
Exactly.
I want everybody to realize
It's not
that.
helpful to carry so many options forward that it's a hard conversation.
Yeah.
These options are also not done, right? So if you carry forward an ad reno, it doesn't mean that you're locked to that square footage of ad reno or new, how much is in what? Because obviously there's elements. What we tried here to reflect a variety of ideas. So the idea of a split building where you're pulling out, the community building, for instance, that's something that helps us to talk about that idea. The MSBA isn't going to hold you to these options tightly because they understand the point is to create this productive conversation. Okay.
And also, just so everybody knows, parking and traffic flow and all that, those can be tweaked, will be
Very
tweaked.
much so.
This is not set in stone, what you're seeing. In terms of even the shape of the building and that too.
That's exactly right.
And the base code upgrade, Dory, that MSBA does fund that?
I think we're going to go through.
We're going to talk through
Thank you.
that. And I was asked to provide a one-page cheat sheet just to help you keep track later or now about what's the difference between the code upgrade and the ad reno. So I'll pass this around, if you could just pass that out to everyone. But basically, it tries to explain, it's easy to get lost and think, what's the difference between, I'm going to borrow that with you, I'm just going to refer to it. The base code upgrade, Gordon and I are already very close. And the ad reno. So we're going to talk through that. And
They're not.
Out there.
Yes, walk them out there.
so Gordon, let's go to the next slide, because we're going to walk through each of these. So option one is a code upgrade. So code upgrade addresses the issues and
Give some out there in case they.
Probably.
Sorry.
so a code upgrade takes the existing building, does not add square footage to it, and does not change the walls inside it, but abates the hazmat and brings all of the systems within the building up to current code standards. So that means in this building, that would mean adding sprinklers, updating the electrical system, updating the plumbing system. That would mean opening the slab to take out dated plumbing systems to put new in, changing out the fixtures. The finishes that are affected by that work would need to be repaired, but not all finishes would be replaced. So if you're looking down the hallway, like how much of that is going, a lot would be affected, but not all of it, right?
Keeping the, pastel.
The pastel would remain, yes. And it doesn't allow us, from an educational standpoint, the real concern there is it doesn't allow us to change the building to respond to 21st century educational program. So that's a major concern for the ed plan, is that you'd have to work within. The MSBA would support this financially to some degree, but there would be a lot of complexity to the process of working through what their support would be, because they have guidelines for space. So classroom is typically 825 at the smallest at the high school level. and up from there. Some of the classrooms in this building are already below that. And when we do this upgrade, we would also have to upgrade the walls to insulate them further, which would mean building in, so we'd be losing square footage. To improve the classrooms, we would have to lower the ceiling to accommodate the ventilation work that we would have to do. So ceilings would lower, walls would come in a tiny bit, but we would really change all these systems and massively improve the behavior of the building. You know, that would be a huge plus.
But two things that I think I heard. So visually, it's not going to look new.
Correct.
And then secondly, even though you're updating all the systems to code and you would do things around the school to make sure that we're meeting code and accessibility and so forth, we haven't done anything to impact the academic program.
Correct.
Except for reduced class sizes.
Yeah, make the classrooms actually smaller.
Not
size.
reduce class size in terms of students, reduce square footage, which we're already below.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, Frank and Heather, like, just based on that explanation, how does that feel?
Claustrophobic.
But it might be our only option. I just want to throw that out there. So before we dismiss it completely, it's viable if there's some reimbursement. Dory, what's the difference in effective reimbursement rate?
I cannot be that exact.
Sizable?
I don't know, because they say they
That'll
would
impact.
participate. If we carry this forward, they would participate in it. But what happens ultimately is we sit down with them and look at every room, and they're basically evaluating it as to whether it's sort of meeting their guidelines, and most importantly, whether it's meeting your ed plan. So, you know, that's the point you bring up, which is that if the ed plan is asking for something that you're not able to provide under that, then they don't want to support it either. Because what they don't want to do is put a lot of money into a school and then 5 years from now have the community saying this school doesn't meet our needs. They want you to go through the process of figuring out what you need educationally, what you want educationally, and how it's going to last a long time, and be sure you're kind of working towards it. So
There is a reality, though, that this is the least effective of the options. So if they're willing to participate, I think we should at least follow the options.
least expensive.
Least expensive, yeah, what did I say?
Least effective.
Oh, least.
I would agree with
And I wouldn't dismiss that, because we're not building to exactly what we're looking for. I understand that, but it's significant difference to the community. So I can't dismiss it yet, just because we're gonna lose 6 inches on one side of the wall. Brand new windows, some of the exterior panels will be replaced, all the heating, electrical, which is one of our biggest issues, will be replaced. We'll have a bigger auditorium than we would otherwise.
Right.
You know, I think certainly we have to address the pool. I don't know that renovating our existing 4-lane pool is really a great option anyway. So, you know, a proposal might be a hybrid of this code upgrade with the community building, that $30 million building, $20 million, whatever it is, giving us everything we need close to it, meaning giving us some extra space out there, giving us that brand new pool that the community is looking for, but adding a new pool on top of the other figures for some of the other, I think some of the standalone numbers are a reach.
So
we'll go through, yeah.
Yeah, and I also, having heard that, tried to prep an alternative that the committee can review that relates to that idea a little bit, maybe not fully.
Okay.
Gets to that.
Really quick, do those numbers count? Oh, I'm sorry, Frank.
The question I had in regards to that code upgrade, and maybe you can speak to other schools who may have gone down this route. That last sentence, this option places students in modular trailers for the course of construction, which we're talking 2 years. One is the cost, I'm assuming we rent those.
Yeah.
Right? Is that cost factored into this, or is that separate?
The cost is factored into these numbers. The cost is not factored. So that's where we asked the estimator to break it out, what is construction cost versus.
Right, you said that's on the bottom. Where?
And then I added it in so you can see it, so you can compare apples to apples. So that, any money spent on modulars is on the district alone.
Yeah, it's
MSBA does not participate in that and does not reimburse for it. But it's factored in these slides as your project, part of your project cost.
You would have modulars, Frank, with this ad and any ad reno.
Right.
Yeah. So no matter where you go in terms of working with the current building, you're going to have modulars.
Another point just to make here is on the site. So because this is a code upgrade, site is not heavily supported in this, right? So there is going to be utility work. We might have to do electrical work. Anything that's affected by change in electrical work or utility work would be repaired. But this does not set out to improve circulation or improve the fields, any of those things. So when you're looking at the difference between the cost per square foot of code upgrade and the ad reno, the difference is in the ad renos, we were trying to give you everything you asked for. And the code upgrade is really typically used to reflect what the district faces over time if they don't pursue a project, because these issues just continue to tip forward for you as cost issues.
If we were to go down that road of either the ad reno or the code upgrade, if you could maybe just talk to me briefly, like projects you may have worked on with the modulars. So I'm assuming those are on campus, like just how that's constructed, how that.
It can be, it can also be, some districts will, because it's on them, maybe there's a parochial school that's not used, maybe you move students there. So it happens a variety of different ways. You're paying, John's got more experience with this than I do, but you're paying to bring them on site, to get them set up and to operate within them. And you probably end up with a plan that phases how many you need when, because you might get students into the building at different times. So this is a real rough estimate based on the number of classrooms you have, what that would cost, just so that you had some figure to.
Dory, I would just offer to that, if part of one of the priorities for a code upgrade is changing electrical and changing HVAC, as you guys know, it's very difficult to do that in pieces, right? Because if you don't have the new equipment, you basically have to start from the center and work your way out, and that may or may not impact their ability to occupy a portion of the building.
Right. And that's why on this one, we put a duration of 3 years, because that was what we were viewing as the potential impact. When you get to the point of having a CM involved, we can kind of game that out further, but it was just.
Go ahead.
So I have a question. Now, this would be just, and I think this is important, this is how I see it, that the community knows when we go to vote. $113 million is approximately what it would cost us as a town to get this up to code. If we vote no, we're going to still have $113 million worth of things to do on this school. We vote no, the MSBA doesn't give us anything for. And would that be the number that we'd be looking at?
Except that so this is a really hard thing. If you leave this behind at this point and move forward, and we do a schematic design on the ad reno option or new option, then that's accurate, what you said. If you carry this forward and this becomes a schematic design, then they will participate. So when you're coming to a financial agreement with the MSBA, it's based on the schematic design that you've chosen. It's not based on a bunch of other options that you considered and let go of. So that we don't have to throw it out right now.
Right.
But at some point, you do have to pick one and move forward.
I guess I just think it's really important for when people go to vote. And because as we move forward, these numbers are going to get higher, and it's scary and it's a lot of money. But I think that we need to let the community understand how much a code upgrade to this school is going to be. And we're eventually going to do this work, and we can either do it with some help from the MSBA, whether we choose this or not, or no help. So if they vote for nothing, we still have to put that much money into this school over the course of the next however many years. And I think it's really important for our community to understand when we hit them up with some of these numbers that moving forward, that that's a lot of money, and we're still not going to get something pretty and something that is uplifting. And I think that's important for us moving forward when it gets to the point, whoever's helping us address this, that the community knows that there's $113 million worth of upgrades the school needs just sitting as it is. And if we don't use MSBA.
But I think we wouldn't have to do all of them, Beth.
Not all of them.
Completely honest, like we wouldn't have to renovate the auditorium, we wouldn't have to renovate the.
Well, I understand that.
If we do a piecemeal, it's not 113
What
million.
happened at Meadowbrook, we had the opportunity for the MSBA to come in, and the MSBA would have spent, by the time we were done, we would have spent less money. We would have had everything we needed at Meadowbrook. this was right before my kids had gotten in. Okay, so we're talking 25 years ago, the town voted it down. And we lost whatever the reimbursement for the MSBA would have been. And we moved forward, and other than the roof and a couple other things, anything we've done to that school, we've paid for out of pocket 100%. So that's what I think they need to understand, that if we, we're asking for a lot of money, and we have to be respectful of the town's money, but we also need to let them know what the reality is, because people didn't understand the reality of Meadowbrook. We got lucky with the modulars, using it with the kindergarten and all of that. We got lucky going into the MSBA program for the roofs and stuff like that, but it's just, I think that we need to be honest with them and let them understand that we're gonna have to put money into the school. It might not be 113 million, but it's gonna be millions and millions and millions of dollars just to get it where it should be. So I think that's important for us to address, not to confuse people, but to inform them.
Beth, could I clarify one thing that I think I heard you say, and please correct me if I misstate any of this. We're going to submit, we're going to go through a process, the PSR process, and by the time we get to the end of that, there will have been a lot of community outreach, and we will all be comfortable, hopefully, that we've settled on a single path that the community already understands. Look, this path is going to be somewhere between this number and this number, right?
Yeah.
On an order of magnitude basis. At that point, they haven't voted on anything.
Right.
They're simply saying, yes, I am on board with option, F. Let's go.
Right.
And then after another period of design and costing and advancing the progress, there will be another submission, and there will be a vote, roughly 15 months from now.
Exactly. Yeah. So if we carry this forward, this number isn't going to change much. The other options that we're going to look at going forward from this slide are options that we have a lot more ability to influence.
Right.
Because you can change scope. You can't change scope in the existing building. It's 186,890 square feet, period. So even that idea of, you're renovating that pool, or you're keeping the pool rather, because it's there. That doesn't include a renovation of that pool. It just includes keeping it and improving the systems that touch it, right? So moving forward, looking at the next one, let's just go forward and kind of play it out, because we'll be here forever if we don't face the music, people.
Can I ask just one question?
Spoken like a true teacher.
Sorry, I'm a little confused. I just want to know this answer. So when you bring it forward, so whatever we choose today to bring forward, 3 to 5, okay? Number of them. Then, so this one here, the code upgrade, you're saying we really don't know what the MSBA is going to participate, but yet we have to bring one forward in like January or February, right? Because it goes from the Prelim, right? So is MSBA going to give us feedback so that we can make an educated decision on what you see?
Yeah, we need to know the effective reimbursement rate.
Great question.
We have to know it, because otherwise we can't make a decision though.
No.
Right, Tori?
No, you're
How do you make that decision?
right.
Right.
So they have to commit to it. I don't know how you get them to do it, but it would be the same with an ad reno if we're going to use some of the existing classrooms.
In the PSR phase, I think we can continue to engage with them around that. If the base code upgrade is a high priority project, and you're really serious about it, then I think, yes, you deserve more information, and we'll have to kind of keep revisiting that. What they have said is, they have to know the community is really supportive and believes that the education program matches that choice.
Well, so when we wrote the education, when I say we, Gordon, or no, all of us, I should say, but not me, I didn't write it, but I read it. In that, we skew it because we want a new building as a town, right? We want a new building, so if we could get a new building, this is why we would justify it, right? But if the numbers don't allow us to get a new building, and if code upgrade is the decision of this committee, then perhaps it shouldn't be skewed in that direction, and maybe we shouldn't submit it like that. I know it's what we want, and that's the goal.
Respond?
Yeah.
I would change the word skew, because it's not it's the educational program for folks who are listening that we submit with this, this report captures what currently is going on and also captures what the district has been doing with professional development, with teaching and learning in all the schools, but then gets specific to the high school. And then it takes it, and this is where I think you're saying skewed. Yes, so it does. It takes it to where we want to go. But where we want to go is representative of good instruction and what's best, at least in our minds, for our students going forward. And so all I'm saying is, I'm not saying that, the committee has to go the direction of where instructionally we think it would be best to go. But we still have to represent that we think if the building is going to help us do the best job instructionally and educationally for our students, this is what it would look like. Now, I totally understand the fiscal responsibility side. So that's.
This is our only option. I don't want us to shoot ourselves in the foot because we were asking for the sky and we can't afford it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So before we submit the whole thing and even the ed plan, should we reassess that slightly so that we don't penalize ourselves if this ends up being our option?
I would say, just for another opinion, we have never done a code upgrade. We've never seen a committee go that direction. I don't think SMA has either. So it's very unusual that would be the preferred approach.
Well, have you seen the cost though?
No, I totally understand. I'm just saying that as background. So I think that we tried, and Dory gave a valiant effort of trying to get the MSBA to actually say how much of this they would reimburse. And not too surprisingly, we did not get a very clear answer back. So, and I think, from their perspective, exactly right. It has to do with matching this project with the ed plan, which, they think should guide a majority of the decisions. I think that if we took this forward into the preferred schematic report phase and it started looking like this is the only option that the committee and the town and the district really want to pursue, we would have to reach out to the MSBA and have some more detailed conversations about what they would and wouldn't reimburse. But we have this problem all the time because you really can't figure out what the MSBA is going to reimburse or not until you're at the very end of schematic design. So even now, when we're giving you figures of, this is how much the construction cost is, this is how much we think the MSBA is going to reimburse, we're using our past knowledge and our professional opinions, but they continue to do calculations till they have all of the detailed information at the end of schematic. So I think that if this is the way that we go forward, we would have to start that conversation earlier, and they would have to understand that the ed program would change.
Also on the ed plan, so the process in terms of our relationship, we submit a report. 2 to 3 weeks later, we get a bunch of detailed questions that are really narrowly focusing on the ed plan specifically. There's comments back where we respond to that. And in the PSR phase, you resubmit it. So there's also, the ed plan is not a fixed document. It is a revisable document, and it is kind of part of a conversation. The reason for the idea of expanding the PSR phase to have more community input is because this is such a big decision. The community is going to want to have input. So that gives us room also in the PSR report to track and communicate some of that input. So just so you know, it's not as do or die a document as I think it feels right now.
In an ad reno, the parts that are renovated, they're subject to reimbursement even if they have smaller square footage classroom size.
And again, you have to go through that conversation with the MSBA, which is something.
In your experience?
Frustrating.
No.
They won't participate in any room that's not full size?
They won't. We just.
You pay 100% of it?
Where we had a small district,
Yeah.
small population, and they're such a unique district. They had some classes that had 15 students and some classes that had 30. So they asked, and the MSBA wanted us to really be tight on square footage. So we gave them a few classrooms that were smaller. Most of the classrooms were on target, and then one that was larger so that they could have some flexibility, which makes sense from a 21st century learning perspective. And the MSBA said you absolutely cannot have classrooms that are undersized.
On new?
That was an ad reno.
Those who are on the new rooms? On the existing rooms, they can't all be right size.
Correct.
But the MSBA participates in the renovation of the old rooms, that are not the right size. So why would we not get the same thing here if we did the whole thing?
They want you to really address the undersized classrooms. So you have, in an ad reno, you have the power to adjust these
You can blow
walls.
out walls.
Would it make sense to
And
go through the
redesign.
Yeah, we can keep.
I think so. Let's go
Yeah,
through.
yeah.
Just one other quick thing, is MSBA, I mean, we know that the cost of building has gone up easily $150 a square foot in 2 years. If you really think about it, that's unprecedented. I mean, when we asked for this 7 years ago, they should have just said yes, and we wouldn't be here right now. So we can't be the only district in the state of Massachusetts who's sitting here going, you need to up your game because you made us wait. How are you gonna do it? They're gonna have to give us, I'd like to think moving forward, and obviously we want this, but we need to hope and keep asking for them to, like, what are you doing? How are you helping other districts? Are you gonna give us wiggle room anywhere?
So
Yeah,
they just, right now we're what, 360 square foot reimbursed?
Yeah.
They adjust that typically in April. So, until we,
It's possible.
so I don't know, is it gonna go to 370? Is it gonna go to 400? I doubt it.
Get close to the 6. I mean,
I hear you.
I feel like I'm always the one that has to say this, but this is, you're not the only ones. Everyone's feeling the pain.
right, and we should understand that.
Antagonizing the MSBA with persistent questions about giving more is going to get you nowhere. I know
It's
it's
not about
so
giving more.
frustrating,
I guess my
but-
question is about giving us some leeway, like maybe we have to do this and maybe some of our rooms can't be that big. And would you mind, please, God, give us whomever.
Whatever they do, they
You know?
have to be consistent across the board. And yes, we'll continue to explore it in PSR.
I'm sure that they're seeing more districts consider the code upgrade seriously. So, and I frankly was surprised that they were as vocally saying, if you go that direction, we will support, we will participate. They didn't say to what degree, but they did.
Well, but even,
That's
it's significant though, because it's, from that to the next project is a 60% increase. So we're only getting effective rate of 20-something%.
Right.
We could get half of that and we'll still be much better off. We'll be 30-40% ahead of the game.
Yeah, except.
And the end number.
Like a 3% reimbursement of.
No.
Project.
No, I think
No.
I'm more than that, but
I think we drop a few percentages. I don't think we drop nothing.
But
nobody can.
remember, you have, I think.
Even if it did though, Pam,
The other options,
we go it alone and cost us less.
we don't know how we can mitigate your most flexibility, if I'm understanding this correctly, for cost reduction are in your admin notes. And we haven't even gotten to options.
Okay, yeah, we should move on to this.
And and remember, the responsibility of, or our task today is to push forward at least 3 options.
Yes.
Because we're in the middle of this feasibility study and we're already spending money, MSBA's money, to do the feasibility study. And so seeing that through and having the time in the PSR, is that the right acronym? In the PSR, to have these same conversations, but have them more with the community so that we can figure it out. Because if I'm understanding everything that's been said so far, we have the opportunity to continue to tweak and reduce and therefore reduce cost. Correct. Okay, good segue.
Keep going, Gordon.
All right.
Option 2, people.
All right, so add renovation with renovated pool was the option that we priced out. And you have the details on that in your PM&C package that was shared with you. So how does this compare to the base code upgrade? It also addresses abatement. It also does all of those code upgrades. It also addresses accessibility. But the primary difference is it allows us to change walls. It allows us to demo part of the building that you may not want. Like, for instance, there's been a desire expressed to get the larger gym, that your gym is undersized for your population. To have a larger gym benefits the programs in many ways. So the plan that we took in here was that we would be preserving the classroom wings predominantly, the annex. We would rebuild the center part of the school from admin through to the cafeteria, including the gymnasium and all the PE wing. Because the MSBA wanted the renovation of the gym preserved as one of these options here on the reno, we kept that in. Then the end classroom wing demolished so that you could build a new science wing that would fully serve the science program, and you could build on top of that so you get more classroom space. Within the academic, we could then change those walls. We could try and create the 21st century learning that we're talking about, bring more of the support pieces in, expand the classrooms, et cetera. So
And you're
it's,
able to change those walls because you're adding a new science wing.
because it's an ad reno. Because it's so this includes, the cost includes dealing with all the finishes and getting rid of that tile, and really trying to make the whole building feel new. It would feel more constrained than if we built new, obviously. If you're talking about comparing to North Middlesex and you got that efficient plan, this is assuming the plan is less efficient, because you're still, again, working within the constraints of what you have. So from an architectural standpoint, this is doable, this is feasible. The compromise, just to compare to new for a second here, is that these are not built walls for this purpose. So we're still doing a code upgrade to those walls. So they would never perform quite the way the new wall would. So from when we talked about incentive points, we talked about green incentive points. I don't think we should assume green incentive points on the ad renos anymore, because the code is tipping up in requirements. So meeting code we'll be able to do, but exceeding code will be harder in the ad reno than it would in new. So just think about that differently. There's no vapor barrier under the slab. You would be building with a new slab and new construction, but here we're left with the slab we have. Okay, but all new windows, all new doors, all new finishes, and a rearrangement of program, and a fair amount of new construction in the project as well. This also displaces students, also uses modulars. That's a very big burden communities often really react to. And then in terms of the outdoors, this includes all the same amenities that we've priced for the new construction. So the revamping of parking and circulation. The plan itself, again, what's challenging, I think, in this plan is that we don't have the latitude to do a lot of change where you're keeping the ad reno, right? So the circulation loop in is somewhat constrained. We would do what we can, but we can't spread that parking to a different location. And we're, there's a little bit of a concern about that, I think, in the team, but we have some latitude to do what we can. The building is very close to Maple Street, so that there isn't a lot of extension for the drop-off loop in any of the schemes that keep the building where it is. So then what we're saying on this slide is the new pool as a separate project can be explored, meaning our thinking was if this is not if you take this forward as the ad reno, we can then explore that in the next phase. And if you decide that you don't want to renovate that pool, we would need to find out if we could anyway, frankly, because this is pretty complicated to cut a lot off around it and try and save it. So I think to the question you're raising, we've created a slide for option 2C that I could switch to, which, because one idea was it's not, unfortunately, on the next slide, I moved it beyond, was a question was asked, what if we downsize the ad reno to only the high school program and pulled all of these slides out? So go all the way down to, I'm gonna have to erase, sorry. Okay. It's just so far. There you go. Oh, sorry.
Nice.
Motion to adjourn.
Good job, man.
Down two.
Down two.
Down three.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. So this is the option that has been brought up as a possibility if we wanted to bring it in. We didn't prep this option with the cost estimator, so it's a little tricky for us, but we could figure out how to do it. So in this idea, and I'm looking mainly at the narrative here. So we would preserve the high school portion of the existing high school. So the annex behind that we're sitting in now, we wouldn't try and keep. We would just instead focus on the core high school. And then that would reduce the amount of renovation area, and it would reduce the amount of we would have the new construction be what it is. The final square footage here would be smaller. So 200,000, still bigger than the current school, to allow for the larger gym and some of the other program that's been asked for, larger admin, et cetera. And that gets you to a different construction cost. And then the community building is a separate building, 34,000 20 square feet, just as we see in the split building option, as a separate building. So you have the high school and you have a community building. In the community building is the district offices, LCAT, district IT, and the pool. And it's a 6-lane pool.
$1 million, right?
And it saves a little bit to do that. But it's still complicated.
Is that all in the?
It doesn't save us. Doesn't that cost us more, Dory?
Um,
That building's not the 125, that's the 30, right?
So
That's a different exterior building.
right, that's a different building, but you're just pulling the square footage out and putting it over there.
Which we'll have to fully
So
fund.
we end up with a little bit less square footage in the schemes.
2B,
And, right,
so 2B has a total of 215,000 square feet as opposed to this with 200,000 square feet.
We're just knocking the annex off.
$10 million project cost
Yeah.
savings.
Just for the annex?
yeah.
It's a $10 million renovation on the annex?
No,
Remember, you're combining.
I mean, you're combining, it's not that precise, we're just talking at square footage levels here.
But the difference between 2B and 2C is we cut the annex off.
In part.
No.
What Dory is talking, and Christian is saying is that we'd also get more squished in with square footage, get a little.
Smaller gym.
So we're taking the desirable square foot that's only the high school
Yeah.
and applying it to how much of this ad reno we're keeping and how much new, and that's your total amount. So that's how you get to that 200,000. And then you're taking all the district square footage and putting it into new construction.
For me, just my 2 cents on this, I think the gym is one of the best things that we have in this, and if we're going to a smaller gym, that kind of defeats.
Oh, no, it's a bigger gym.
It's a bigger gym. No, but this 2C is a smaller gym than 2B, correct? That's some of our square footage?
Same gym.
Anyway, I don't think we should cut the annex off either, because that we're trying to save money to not have to rebuild 100% through the community. I don't know why we're cutting the annex off of this one, I guess.
So then in that case, I would say, don't worry about 2C at all, stick with 2B.
I was looking for a 1B.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
but
that, your concept of 1B is a code reno. So
Yes.
That's the code reno. So
Yep.
let's just carry the code reno forward.
Yep.
And then if you want to add a separate community.
Correct.
See, what I don't understand about your idea is you have a lot of square footage here that's community space.
We're going to keep it here.
And you're going to keep it here
Yep.
and reapply it.
We're going to use, the annex we're not going to touch,
So why did you want a 30,000 square foot community?
because I'd like to make it a true community building, not just a pool. So if we want the community to buy into this whole project, then they have to be part of this project. If the high school is going to stay the same, we need to address some of those other issues in the extra building that we're going to ask the town to fully fund. So the large educational space that we saw in North Middlesex, maybe we put it in this building and we call it a yoga studio, meeting space, all that thing in the separate building. We had the pool, we had the bathrooms for the stadium and the concessions, all on one building right next to the stadium, which is gonna cost us more than the 10. I don't know what it costs us.
Right, so in that
It gets
case.
us more for less.
Right, so basically it's a code repair and then whatever a new building that the town agrees that it wants
Right.
to meet a bunch of recreational goals and
Right.
community goals. Okay, so I still think you're fine just keeping the code repair and moving forward. And I think we're still okay taking 2B forward if you want it as an ad reno. And we can massage that further, it's not.
I just don't think the pool, I mean, the gymnasium should be the thing that goes. I mean, we were just saying that the classroom sizes, I know we can move walls and things, but we're gonna keep the classrooms. I don't know why are we knocking down the gym? It's a relatively nice space, is why I say that. So this is like doing an ad reno just to do it, it seems like, for me, anyway.
And
had a question.
just to remind folks too, like the other side of this is that, yes, the community stuff's important, but the whole point of this is to improve the education of our students, right? So we can't forget that focus either. And with that code upgrade, you're improving some of those things, but it's not meeting that educational vision.
It'll be worse.
It will be worse.
It won't be worse. It will be a better learning environment.
But we have to understand too.
If you went to
Obviously-
Middlesex, every classroom is a box, right? With some nice furniture in it and a lot of nice windows. Let's just be real about it. So if we have to move some stuff around in what we have, I don't see how like 5 more feet on this wall is gonna change how education goes in East Long Meadow. It's not.
But it'll still be the same building that they'll be walking into.
Right, but if we
my
can,
father walked into.
if only one of our options is viable, we should go with that option. Is that a fair statement?
But Greg, you're awfully hung up on that. You don't know that.
I do know that.
You don't.
Okay.
How? Based on what?
I know what the tax
data you have.
threshold is for paying additional taxes. I do.
Tell me what it is.
I'm not gonna tell you what it is, because then I'm not gonna say it, but you have an idea what I've told you what it is.
Okay.
And we're
The other thing is,
far above it.
I think it's important for us to understand, just like what, Heather was saying. We obviously want our community to use this space, but I look at my mother. My mother she would never walk into the senior center. She would never walk into, she goes to, if one of her grandkids is playing something, we might get her to go into, one of these spaces. But in terms of utilizing the community space, she will vote for it because she knows she wants the school, because she knows the education aspect of it. She'd be like, I'm not gonna go ever watch a movie in this room or that room unless one of her grandkids was doing something. So there's a lot of people out there who understand that, never gonna use the community aspect of it. That is a nice thing. It's what we want our people in this town to have. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who they want the school, and the school's important, and the pool's important. And the rest of it is, not for us to have 100% burden on, because the town has had opportunities to purchase places and things and stuff throughout the years. So we have to understand, number one is the school. Number 2 is the pool. Number 3 is the community. And that's how I would divvy it up. So let's just see what they gotta say. Because we're gonna put the code in first, okay? And then we'll just gotta pick a couple others and we gotta run with it.
Just assume.
I think this shows you. All right, so.
I can't.
I'm sorry. Okay.
I mean, just say 30, you can, yeah.
So do you want to go through 2B?
Let's, so we just talked about 2B. Again, I kind of think that this conversation you're gonna have for a while, so just to keep us moving.
One thing I do want to mention, and I was just talking to Dory about, is, we keep talking about MSBA's participation. Overall, and we know that of eligible costs right now, we're at 56.8%. But when you break that down, since they capped square footage and so forth, the estimate, I believe, Skanska has given us is closer to 30% participation. Right. Greg? Yes. So 30%, not necessarily 20%.
Effective.
On
a new?
On all of this.
At this point, we're trying to put all this information.
Right.
Not including the other square footage in a separate building. Correct.
Wouldn't include that. No.
Yeah.
But just so that we're not, because it's been jumping around in conversation, some saying 20, some saying, oh, it's 25, I've said 29. So just so we can make the assumption it's 30% right now, and then we keep going through with.
Gordon, that's the point.
Yeah.
That's now, that
right.
MSBA is a fluid.
Correct.
Situation, so it could end up being 50, but it could also end up being 10.
Right.
So you have to keep that.
Keep it in mind. Especially since we're talking about how they're going to look at each academic space.
Exactly.
So we have to continue to make the argument that we feel is going to ingratiate ourselves to their formula. Would I be correct?
Yeah, okay. Spot on.
I think if we move forward with a base repair, add reno, and a new, we're not, when we get into PSR, we can tweak those. As long as it's not wholesale change, so
right.
I don't think we need to feel that we have to have the perfect solution right now.
Good point.
Should we just agree to put a pool on all 3 of the options though, because it is it's an emphasis of the community?
Right, so that's why the calculations here include the pool in it as a number.
Except on 1, they don't.
Well, 1, it's just, you mean 1 is just the base code.
Yeah.
Add a new pool.
That exists to be there. Okay, so there's no, but that's what I'm saying. I don't want that as an option. I don't want to portray it as an option. I want to knock that pool off and build that community building. So should we put it as that instead?
Well,
You can't knock the pool off a code repair. You can't.
Why couldn't you fill it in and use the square footage for academic?
But then,
Yeah? In a code upgrade?
Yeah, you just gotta eliminate it and
I mean, you guys would probably have to do the filling in yourselves, and then from
Yeah.
there, ultimately, I would say.
The trucks.
Have an
Another
extra.
gym or where's your current gym?
And then-
You can recognize him, he's.
I just don't think we can design.
Yeah, he's on,
at this
I don't know if he's
table
raising his
right
hand.
now.
Okay.
All we can do is carry it forward and
Okay.
get more information.
Okay.
Right. What you're saying is you should, as a committee, be thinking about that plus 10 million.
What it actually looks like, if that's gonna be the project, if that's what we wanna do.
Hoosick Valley had a pool. They did a renovation in the school addition,
Yes,
and they filled their pool in and created a second gym.
correct.
It was an ad reno project.
That was it, right? Was that your project? or-
Yes.
It was our project.
At Reno.
SMA and JWA.
I think,
So there's some precedent.
we do have Bruce Fenny, who's part of this committee, online, and he may have a comment. Bruce, you still with us?
Yes, I am. How we doing, everybody?
Good.
Bruce,
Good. Obviously, I've been listening tentatively with everybody's opinions and everything else on all these different options, which I think are great. I don't know if you're done with your presentation, Dory, on your on all these different options.
A few more, but please, go ahead.
I don't know if the committee's ready. I would like to entertain a motion to move option 2B, 3B, and option 5 to go to the MSBA as our 3 top projects.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second out of necessity, or no?
I'm sorry.
Should I second?
So that doesn't-
Second for discussion.
Yeah. Second only allows you to, is the only thing that allows you to discuss.
Do you want to do that?
If it doesn't have a second.
don't we have, isn't there more to go over? Should we go over the rest first?
Let's go over everything.
Bruce, do you mind? They just have a few more slides to go over and then we can go through the.
Absolutely. I just wanted to give my opinion just in case it continues on, I get cut off or something. And I reviewed all these documents, I'm sorry, all these documents last week, so I've read through everything, so that's my opinion, mine alone. Thank you.
So, do you want to withdraw your motion just for the sake of us continuing?
Sure, I'll withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Bruce. Don't withdraw from the meeting, stay in the meeting.
All right, let me try and speed through here, and
Speed
let's
through.
hold our discussion, I guess, so that we can get that done. So 3B is new construction behind the existing school, and then demo of the existing school. So it's immediately behind, it's off the footprint, so that there's no need for modulars. And the square footage of this is tighter than the ad reno, because you're building new, so you can have the capacity to be a little bit more focused and address any inefficiencies. This building, as we all know, has lots of connecting corridors, so such things become unnecessary. The construction cost is higher. This currently, as the ad reno and the new, all include all the same amenities and requests. It included a turf field. So we've identified, I think, quite a bit of money here in terms of what can be removed from both of these options, all of the new options that we can kind of discuss as well, just to kind of show that we're hearing that this is way beyond expectation. There are things that can be kind of brought down. The next option is 4B. It's similar, basically the same square footage assumptions, same approach assumptions, but further into the site. So we did that just to see what is the difference in cost for siting and how does the community feel about that. And generally the committee liked that it opened up more parking closer to Maple Street, building play, which was beneficial as an idea. But there's an additional cost to that building further into the site. There would basically just be more paving. But in both 3B and 4B, we feel that we can provide back all the fields that you currently have. It's all just about rearranging. So there isn't a huge difference, and the difference in cost is pretty minor between the two. This is more expensive than 3B. Our feeling is that since these are fairly early on, 3B and 4B aren't different enough. We're quite fine to take one new option forward. We might end up somewhere in between based on responding as the design evolves. So I wouldn't get hung up on 3B or 4B. One of them is sufficient if you want to keep a new option on the table. 5 takes the idea of pulling all the community program, all that ineligible that's associated with district offices, LCAT, IT, and the pool, including a new pool and locker rooms to support that pool, putting it in its own building, putting the concessions in that building as well, because you'd be building closer to the game field. You could accommodate that so that you didn't have to have a separate concessions building with bathrooms, which is a goal of the project. So the other projects all can carry to concessions building. This one does not, it's just absorbed in. So that's partly why it shows a little bit higher in cost than the others. And again, you're building 2, you've got a larger square footage there. So that's why that one ends up being higher. When, the numbers I gave you that showed PM&C's numbers didn't always add the pool in. So these numbers that you're seeing end up comparing quite similarly. If you go to the next slide. So here you see the comparison of these with the cost of modulars and the cost of the pool, because you wanted a pool in everyone, shown so that you can kind of see a little bit more directly the project comparison. And at this point in time, again, we can't identify exactly what the local share is, but, the rule of thumb here is we're talking about, roughly 30% is the amount towards this. So you can kind of do the little bit of the math there to imagine it. But the proposal is just to carry some of these forward so that we can continue to have a conversation. And now that you're aware of what the cost of this project might be, what we hope to do in Psr is define scope further.
Why is the square footage cost increase from 3B to, because it's all new, to 5? Why is there,
Because a separate building has separate systems.
Okay.
So you have to
Redo it
multiply your mechanical system.
And does 4B where the pool would be essentially attached at some point, or was 4B without the pool? That was a separate building?
Mentally, we drew them as in and then just did a math exercise essentially to pull them out.
Okay.
So but initially we were just going to do it as not eligible for reimbursement. Then we had to actually increase it. So that 10 represented it as a standalone construction.
Okay, but there's a pool near but not attached to all the options, or are some of them thrown into community building? I guess which ones have the pool in the community building? Because if they don't vote for the community building, they might vote for the pool.
The community building is the one that has it not.
5, right?
5? So 5, it is not near the high school.
Exactly.
Okay. I would find bothersome because, if we want to keep it near the building so that if we don't get a community building, at least we know there's a space where we can get the pool. Space is near, do you understand what I'm saying about?
I thought 3B had no pool either.
It's added on.
It's added as a second, as a second.
I see, thank you.
In the project total.
Dory is another way to say it. 3B and 4B have a standalone pool feature.
Mm-hmm.
5 has a larger standalone feature, which incorporates other things besides a pool.
Exactly. And therefore, the square footage of the high school in 5 is smaller because more community program is pulled out of the building.
And the perceived reimbursement rate will go up because you've taken out all this non-reimbursable space.
The perceived.
Emphasis on perceived.
Exactly. No, I agree. So when you go out to a vote, the community is going to see that and see a more positive situation for that vote.
Yeah.
But then they have this other
The
vote.
cost is higher, though.
But then they have a second one that has 0 reimbursement. So it's,
So that whole community building would be a second vote, right?
Have to be completely separate.
That's true.
Lately, so like IT.
So that becomes dangerous.
Yeah, no, I know.
Because you're pitting the high school against IT, LCAT, central office, and the pool.
Yeah.
You end up with a high school with no pool and.
Could end up with a community building and no high school.
Right.
Exactly,
That's why I.
Wow, that's what I'm shooting.
That's the box they put us in.
So then central office exists with no school.
Exactly.
So,
Oh, we got two.
All right.
so to further this on,
Elected to 2 years.
so remember the evaluation matrix that we bored you with for 2 meetings straight? That's why this ends up mattering, is so you can also remember all the other things that you talked about, caring about, just to kind of see how they compare. So this can be altered, we can open it up live and explore
Dragging down our.
changing these numbers. This is just trying to apply the evaluation criteria we discussed. Christian, you're welcome to talk through this. You're
Sure.
very good at
I mean,
it.
I think the scores are very indicative of what we've talked about today and kind of the narratives that went along with each choice. I was going to say during 2B, but I didn't want to take up time. I think one critical aspect to think about, both 1, base repair, and 2, ad reno, is our engineers at SMA are quite frightened of those choices.
Damn it, Helen.
We have a very low floor-to-floor height with the existing school. And that worked in old buildings because you had unit ventilators that just sucked air straight in from the outside. They're loud, fan noises, very hard to repair. So in both of those options, to introduce new systems into the building is going to be quite difficult. So that was something we added that to this evaluation matrix. I think towards the bottom allows for greater choice in mechanical systems. So again, these are all of the factors that we've heard from the school building committee, from the district, from the community. And then at the bottom is the approximate project cost. So to Greg's point of, if you can't afford the one with the highest score, that's something to consider about. But it is also, we think, important to kind of keep these scoring evaluations in mind as you push the different options forward.
And then this is the outline of what's contained in the PDP report that you're also voting on today to submit to the MSBA. And you were given draft copies of that. There are elements in it that need to be updated based on your decisions today. But just so and if you have any detailed questions about any of these things, feel free to reach out to us and we can work through the details.
I have 2 questions, actually. And I don't know my place here if I'm able to ask these questions, but I think, like, as a neighborhood community,
Please.
2 concerns that I think are relevant. That if we do an ad reno or base, upgrade all of the systems, if we don't address the actual curriculum needs of the physical class sizes, like pushing in walls does physically make a teacher's job harder. Where when we have to address these, it's still a 70-year-old building where we'll still have to cross this bridge again, possibly sooner, if we're only renovating parts of it. You're still looking at structural, an old building that's currently not working to meet the needs of the teachers. So that's one question. Then the other, all of the new construction, which I know layout of things can be changed, they all have access off of Norton. And I know we're pretty tunnel vision over here about it, but just curious if, as a community member, our option is upgrade the existing building that is still very old and all of our neighborhood access behind the high school.
To talk about Norton Street, so these are drawing, we did also meet with fire and there is a concern that we need to be sure that we're providing access 3/4 of the way around the building for fire trucks. So part of why we have to maintain some possibility there, or it's assumed at this point that we don't want to kind of close that off entirely, is because we want to keep having productive conversations about emergency access around the building, which I hope would be acceptable to the community. Having heard the concerns, because again, we also heard a desire for spreading parking, and we were looking at some of those things. So that's why you see that variety of options with different lots spread and different access outlets, is so that we could have these kinds of conversations. But I think we're hearing, and we're definitely listening and hearing. So our team has already been talking about all the different things we'll have to do to focus on getting more circulation off of Maple, to be sure because we want to improve the traffic flow at Maple as well, because that's also a concern. So that might mean 2 loops off of Maple instead of touching Norton. But we would still want to maintain emergency connection at Norton because there are times where it would be foolish not to. We did, I don't know if you're aware, we did also talk about Chestnut as a connection in order to create a different access. Yeah, so that has been discussed and, it could be brought up again in PSR. It was not incorporated in any of these cost estimates because that would be a cost increase. So that might be something, if the community chose to do, it could be addressed elsewhere. But right now, that's not on the table. Yeah.
And it's also important to remember, notwithstanding all this discussion and a lot of different points of view in this room, none of this is binding. You're not, if it shows a driveway here and you want the driveway here, we can explore that.
That's what I was.
Right, there are lots of options that we are going to continue to look at with public feedback, with public input. So.
And like 3B, but even though it has a Norton thing, it doesn't mean that that's going to be it.
Right.
100%.
And all of the site plans were created before we got the petition as well. So just keep that in mind. And please continue to come to meetings.
So the designs were created before you received the petition, but at the very first meeting at the high school, those concerns were expressed in the survey.
Right, it's tricky. We hear concerns from a lot of different directions. So it has to amplify enough because we've also heard concerns from the school that they wanted to spread the flow of circulation out because of congestion, because of overlaps of teachers and students. So we were trying to explore how to do that. So Norton has been looked at primarily as a way of taking the small bus population that moves through the site out to reduce the number of vehicles that need to go back out onto Maple. So that was one conversation that was had. Another was a possibility that maybe faculty alone coming that direction. The other was service. So it's not been, we haven't committed to anything. We've just, in conversation with the school building committee and the design team, tried to explore these to find out what's going to land well, what's not, what are people really looking for? Because we can't know until we put it on paper and show it to people. So as that process has gone along, we've gotten strong pushback, and that's going to definitely register, I assure you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's over to you.
Okay.
Now you could entertain the motion if you want.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you were getting at.
Do any kind of preliminary, sorry.
I was just going to ask, is there any further topics that anyone would like to raise relative to any of these options or the process? Or anything that is pertinent?
My concern is we're moving forward with this. Any option that doesn't keep a pool near the school could end us up with no pool. So I just want us to be thoughtful of that. And the other thing is, if we're pushing to have a community building and we do go for a vote, can we make the community building based on how the school vote goes? Because we could end up with a community building and no new school.
Right.
And that is not what we want, because you ain't getting it without the other, sort of a thing. So how do we go about, because we got so many things happening right now. So that was just my thought as we think about what we're sending forward here.
I don't agree with you about the pool, though. I think we're better off if we're doing a separate building out by the stadium with all the other amenities we were talking about.
So long as you're
Just
okay
put it out
with not
there.
having a pool. Because if we don't.
I disagree with that assessment of how the vote would go. I disagree, but that's fine.
Okay.
I think if you package it collectively, you're more apt to get more people excited about it than a standalone pool, which only applies to a much smaller population. If we put the bathrooms, the concession stand, or concessions attached to it, it's more likely to pass, my opinion. More expensive, but needed anyway.
And those conversations can continue down the road.
Right, I
think that's what we have to start to figure out.
I think it's a whole package you have to offer the community, to say that.
It's gotta be separate, though.
It has to be separate anyway, right? So it has to be separate anyway, so you have to make it palatable to the community. But a standalone pool is less palatable than a community building that is open to more people,
But I don't want to
even for older folks to use the.
Building in a pool and a new snack shack and not a school, because people can't handle all of that, Greg. You know what I mean?
I don't know what to tell you, Beth.
Education first, period. Education first. That's it. That's why we're here. That's why we're on the board. our kids are the foremost of our community, and everything else is frosting and exciting and should be had, but I just hope that even if we do end up doing a community building separate, we just have to figure out how to word that when the vote comes through, so it's, they can vote against the community building, but not the school. If they vote against the school, they're not getting the community buildings. I just don't know how that goes forward, and that was my only thought when we're making such a big separation.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, but the problem is if we get the school and not the community building, we will not have a pool.
I know.
Nope. That's all.
It's tricky.
Sure. Any other questions, comments, concerns, criticisms? Seeing none. Would anyone care to make a motion?
Bruce? How's your time?
Still with us?
Is there?
Yes, I am. I'd like to bring up one point as well. By having the community building near the track area, I believe code dictates that you have to have bathrooms within 200 feet. So with the new building and everything else, I still don't think we'd meet that criteria. And moving that community building closer to the track, that helps Frank hold AWA events. And I don't even know if that terminology is correct, Frank, when holding track events. So that's something to consider as well, having bathrooms right next to the stadium. Thank you.
Yep. Good. Did you want to make a motion, Bruce?
Yeah, sure. I'll make that motion again. I'd like to put forward options 2B, 3B, and option number 5.
Second.
That was you, Ryan?
Ryan, second. Discussion?
Yeah, why 3 over 4? Because I would do 4 over 3.
They said that
Same.
For the purposes of this, Beth, I think we should think of it as a category, new building.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
the two might morph into one another as we design.
Do you have one question about the estimate on the pool? Are those soft costs included with that estimate or no, just construction?
No, that's fully baked.
Yeah, it's fully.
$10 million number?
Yeah, that's a fully baked number, Bruce.
I haven't.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
My other thought is in terms of a code upgrade, just a code upgrade. I don't expect you to submit this to the Msba and all that kind of stuff, but, if we don't vote for one, but can we keep the numbers there so people understand?
of course.
I think it's really important that they see
Sure,
it.
this information doesn't disappear. Believe me, it definitely comes back when the community's debating it and they want to understand you have this information available and.
I think we should bring it up.
So, Dory, you suggest we don't put one forward? I thought we had this conversation. Weren't we talking about one forward? Or is everybody out?
I don't see the point.
Yeah, I think.
It's the only one we can afford. Do we not see the point to that?
I think I would rather see nothing done instead of doing
Then
one.
that's where we're gonna end up with, Ryan. I truly believe that. I'm pretty close to believing that.
Towards that point, I think including one, to your point, will show, here's what we're gonna do anyways at some point in time, and here's the options. And it may, to your point, it may be the only thing we can.
Yeah.
But we can do that.
It gets you nothing.
No, it gets us a code, it gets us electrical, it gets us
Which
new
we don't have to
HVAC.
do.
But we need it. We need electrical. We will do it.
So then we can spend the $5 million and do that. And 5 million's less than 113.
No, bring the building up. We won't get reimbursement. Well, that's a whole nother topic, but we're going through the
We could do an
process.
accelerated repair program if we
My
needed
thing
to.
with this right now is honestly, from what I'm hearing is, we can bring it forward and discard it later on. But if we discard it now, it's gone. So that's one of that. To me, to your point, Ryan, I think you're right. I think it's not gonna be the flash. It's not gonna be here's a brand new thing. But the electrical code will be brought up to speed, and I'm exaggerating for a purpose here. The building may not burn down. And there's stuff that could happen, obviously, when we make sure of that, but generally speaking, you don't want a tragedy to happen. So bringing it forward, to me, it's just it gives me an option that I can compare to other options.
Yeah, I'm just think we should be efficient with our time and with their time, where option one would give us a building that will be worse for the educational standpoint.
That's not true.
If we.
Is that a true statement, though? Would you say that, Gordon? Because we're gonna have not leaky roofs, we're gonna have better windows, we're gonna have better heat. It will be a better building. So I wouldn't go that far.
But the rooms will be smaller.
And
6 inches,
ceilings-
right, Dory? We're talking inches.
The
Right.
ceilings are gonna come down.
Please.
Yes, on the.
And the drop ceilings already exist. We have some room up there.
It will be lower, but they're.
I think it won't be.
No, it's not, this is not anything I wanted. This is not anything I want. I'm just putting that out there. I don't want to do it. But if it's our only option, Beth, got to
Yes.
consider it because MSBA gives us reimbursement. We got to take it while we can. We put in 7 years for this.
Correct.
If we let it go and the other 3 options are not viable, we're dead in the water.
If we put in renovation and addition, which is what the motion said as one of our options, we can always reduce
that down.
what we.
It's $50 million more than the first one.
But we can reduce what we're adding on. We could, you know,
It's a pipe dream. It really is.
redo the science wing and then not do what's on the right side, because it can change if we, right? We can change the scope of the addition with the renovation if we do 2B.
With what we can afford.
If we don't ask for 2B, then it doesn't become an option.
I'm not saying don't ask for it.
Always downgrade
He's just saying
2B,
to ask for one.
you know what I mean?
2B will be more expensive than 1.
You
Yes?
want to have 1 and 2?
1 may be the only thing we can afford. I am telling you, that is as close as we should be in our budget. We need to be close to that number. These other numbers, I wish we could do it, Beth. I wish we could do it, but I am so fearful that we will bring this vote to the town and they will say, how much are my taxes going to increase? It's real. This is real. How much is the last building you guys built? How much? Anywhere, let me put this here. The square footage that we're looking for, is it anywhere near 180 million? Has anybody ever built anything near that for the square footage we're looking at?
No.
Right, because it's crazy. It's like an astronomical pie in the sky number. It's just way out of the ballpark from what our budget is for this town. I truly believe this, Beth. There is only so much people will say yes to on their taxes, and those aren't them. They're not. It's terrible.
You know I want them to keep us updated on what just code upgrade is. But if we did a renovation addition, we can get that maybe down lower by not adding some of the things that are in the renovation. But if we don't ask to add it, at least include the add renovation, then we don't even get the option.
I'm not saying take 2B off, leave 2B on. I'm asking to leave 1 on.
You want to leave 1 and 2 and
Yeah.
3 and 5.
If we have no other option, I believe this committee might vote for 1. I don't know that, but I believe they might. Because to do nothing means no reimbursement, and then what do we do, Beth? What's the plan from there? We get $500,000 from the town in capital investments every year.
I know.
How long is it gonna take to make that 113 million?
How do you think?
25 years?
I mean, just to kind of keep, we did just want to point out that some of the things that were asked for, if you add up all the extras that were asked for in site costs and the community space that's ineligible and the pool, you know, that's $34.5 million. So that's, I know that everybody here is really clear, the community won't support it if those things aren't included, but that's, you know, if you take that away and then all the multipliers that come on top of that, then you're also down a lot closer to the number you think the community.
But then the community still needs to reproduce those, Dory. It doesn't help us, I know. We need all these spaces.
I'm not arguing to.
We need them all in this town. And so to say that we can just cut them off and let the town worry about it, it's the same problem because the town's gonna need the square footage that they don't have. So, I don't know.
I just think it's a good idea to have options. I mean, I do think you have to narrow down the focus.
I think it's a bad idea. I mean, if I should, then I won't.
Further down the road, I mean, you can get to a better spot, which might be a hybrid, it might be eliminating, it might be whatever.
Right.
It's better for the town, it's better for everybody involved. You know it's an accurate one of what is needed.
And you're going to have to, what we discussed is the goal of having community conversations. So this is then just the conversation we're having here becomes a larger community conversation.
But at some point, I really think we're gonna need to lead with the cost to the taxpayer. That's gonna be important to their decision, and we have to be open about what that cost is and comfortable with what that cost is. So we kind of have to narrow that before we can get some real input. Because if you say to the town, do you want, option 5? Yes, we'll take it. But you have to tell them their tax implication, I think. That's all.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, I don't think we're as far apart as we sometimes seem, right? That's certainly part of the messaging as we go through the next 4 months.
Yeah, but there's a threshold to which the town will accept. My personal belief, we're not even close. I think we're way over, not even ballpark. We're out of the ballpark. I really believe that.
It's your opinion.
Yes.
Bruce, would you like to modify or otherwise withdraw your motion?
Is that something we want to do and somebody else is going to make a motion? I'll withdraw my motion. If that helps the committee make a decision. I want to let everybody know as well, the electrical system. So we're in the process of upgrading all the switch gear and everything else in the electrical room. So like I said, one of my main focus is obviously the safety and well-being of the students in that facility. So it will get us to the near future. Obviously, some branch circuits we may lose here and there, but the electrical system this upcoming year will be changed out, and we're getting a new roof over the freshman wing, just so everybody knows. Thank you.
Bruce, I think thank you for that. But also, if you're open to it, you can modify it to, it sounds like just to include.
I can do it, Gordon. If you're at, make a motion.
You have a motion.
Took it off. Okay, I'm sorry.
You could just modify it to include the code upgrade, which is 1. Or you could withdraw it. Or we could go to a vote.
I think you already withdrew. Didn't you say that?
Right, stuck on mute. Oh.
You're on mute, Bruce.
Withdraw.
Are
like me to
we
be on
putting 3 projects forward? Is that our maximum, or can we do
At least.
You have to put at least 3 forward, one of which has to be an ad reno.
Okay, so I'll modify my motion to include option 1 as well.
Okay. So the motion,
3B and number 5.
so the motion would be include options 1, 2B, 3B, and 5.
Yes.
Okay. And Ryan, you had the original second. Do you want to keep your second? Beautiful. Have a motion and a second.
Shall we have a vote?
Unless there's more discussion.
Is there any more discussion? Anyone? Roll call vote?
Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Crucial.
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Margin Boucher.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Blair.
Yes.
Mr. Fenny.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Quimby.
Yes.
Mr. Page.
Yes.
Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Lonigan.
Yes.
Ms. Labar.
Yes.
Okay, then that's unanimous. That passes. All right, so we're pushing forward options 1, 2B, 3B, and 5. Reducing costs, all of them. That's an ad lib, sorry.
That's our charge. We hear you.
And then we have one more vote, too, I believe.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is there a motion on the floor to submit the preliminary design program to the MSBA?
Yes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Okay. We got and
And you need verbatim motions.
I think, Pam, you have to,
Sorry.
We're cranking over
Yeah, yeah.
here, sorry.
Do you want me to go ahead and read that now?
please, yep.
Okay, so I'd like to make the motion that the East Long Meadow High School Building Committee votes to approve the preliminary design program and authorize Msba USA Building as owner project manager to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority on behalf of the district.
Second.
Is there a second?
Mr. Second.
Makes it real. Thank you.
Ryan's been here.
I think you have to go discussion first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would there be any discussion on this motion? There's none.
Roll call vote. Mr. Crucial.
Yes.
Margin Boucher.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Blair.
Yes.
Mr. Fenny.
Yes.
Mr. Quimby.
Yes.
Mr. Page.
Yes.
Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Lonigan.
Yes.
Ms. Labar.
Yes.
Okay, that's unanimous too. So we've now moved forward 4 options, I believe, and we have approved submitting the PDP.
Yes, we have.
Well done, people.
Well played, people.
Not finished yet with our tasks, so.
Last on the, or second to last on the agenda, communications update. Victoria, do we have anything to?
I can just handle this, sorry, she's a little tied up. No, I don't know that we have too much more to add on top of, so the design team did a great job of detailing our night for the National Night Out. The next thing we're looking forward to is the Community Forum on September 21st, which will be held at the Senior Center. Do we know which room or?
It's in their auditorium.
It's in the auditorium.
Large common area.
What time is that at, did you say?
That's at 6 p.m.
6 o'clock.
So we welcome you all. We are expecting that it'll be well attended. I know during the National Night Out event, a lot of folks expressed interest on attending that event. So we're hopeful to get a lot more feedback and continue this ball rolling.
Can you repeat the next?
It's not 8, sorry. It's September 21st. I believe that is a Thursday. And it's at 6 p.m.
That's been renovated,
That's critical.
I think that's it on
Communication.
yeah, communications as for right now. The project website continues to be maintained, so please check us out through the town's homepage. We've got a homepage on there. School homepage, sorry.
This presentation you put up there?
Yes, it will. Yes, it will.
I'd love to get a copy of it.
All right, very well. Is there any new business anyone would like to bring forward? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Beth,
Seconded.
just make sure you grab the motions.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Any discussion on adjourning? One.
Just ask that no one leave.
Yeah, one, thank you, Victoria. We do have 2 meetings posted, and so now that we've had those 2 votes, the task as we adjourn this meeting and relax for 15, 20 minutes is that we have to get formal minutes printed out. We will come back into that second meeting that's posted, and we have 1 vote, which is to approve the minutes from this meeting. So I appreciate everybody's continued participation, and I know you're all looking forward to a nice stretch. So with that, take it to a vote. We'll go roll call vote. Mr. Crucial?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Margin Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Fanny?
Yes,
Hey, you can't vanish into your home, by the way.
I'm not vanishing.
Okay. Mr. Quimby?
Yes.
Hey, Mr. Page?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lonigan?
Yes.
And Ms. LeBar?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. We're adjourned.
So it is written,
Stretch.
so it is done.
We get the minutes set.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. The first and I believe only order of business is the approval of the meeting minutes from the August 25th, 2022 School Building Committee meeting as amended.
You want it all in one motion?
Sure.
So I'll move that we accept the East Long Meadow High School Building Committee August 25th, 2022 minutes with 1 amendment, removing Joe Dunn, Town DPW Facilities Manager, from the minutes.
Second.
Second.
In second.
On fire today with a second.
He is. He's
Mr. Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
Okay. If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Okay, Mr. Crucial?
Yes, sir.
Margin Boucher? Yes. Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Fanny with us?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks, Bruce.
Mr. Quimby?
Yes.
Mr. Page?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lonigan?
Yes.
Ms. LeBar?
Yes.
That's unanimous. The minutes are approved.
Is there any new business? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Brian?
Second.
Do you want to accept?
I can have it, that's fine.
You gotta keep it now.
Okay,
I'm not gracious.
that's got the second.
We should have it scripted, Gregory.
Any discussion on adjournment? Okay, final roll call. Mr. Crucial?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Marjan Boucher?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Thompson? Yes. I am a yes, although I would love to spend more time with all of you. Ms. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Fenny?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Page?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lonigan?
Yes.
And Ms. Labar?
Yes.
You're officially adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.